there's an election campaign going on in Israel. And you could listen back a couple weeks ago with Juan Cole. There are actual disagreements inside Israeli politics on, as an example, spending, on deregulation. Israel, like everywhere else in the world, has gone through a sort of market deregulation, privatization process, oligarch wealth concentration process of the past couple of decades that have hurt their social safety net, massively increased inequality, increased poverty, diminished job prospects, and also added to a much broader atmosphere of serious corruption and systemic corruption in Israel. Israel has a huge amount of corruption problems. The indictments against Bibi are not just about garden variety corruption, though. That's part of it. But it's also the leveraging of a free newspaper that was just funded and distributed freely by Sheldon Adelson, the American far-right casino magnate, and with a very, 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 very extreme views on Israel. And Netanyahu using that as a base to essentially try to extort press coverage, right? So these charges are also about a broader unwinding of, even inside 67 borders, Israel's institutions. No candidates that are in the race as of now with any serious chance of wielding power will do anything about the fact that Israel is an apartheid state, the fact that they control 5 million other human beings, the fact that there's rampant civilian abuses and killings, the fact that there's two different sets of laws in places like the West Bank. And the reality is politically that besides an occasional rocket attack, which of course should go without saying, but I feel like we do need to say it, of course we condemn, Israel is very secure. And there's no political price to be paid for this. And the modern consensus in Israel is really, there's some arguments about nation branding. And someone like Ehud Olmert will come out and still make noises about a two-state solution. But there's a huge amount of racism. There's a very right-wing political consensus. And there's a comfort in that situation. The joint list of Arab and socialist parties as of a couple weeks ago were not allowed to run, even as a Kahanist, which can literally be called at least actual Jewish terrorist adjacent political party, is running and in a broader right effort. So democracy in Israel is in bad shape, and the rights and justice for the Palestinian people remain at the bottom of the list of any kind of broader project. And you saw that in all of the racism and conspiracy theorizing and bloodlust at AIPAC. But this really drives the point home. This is an ad that is running in Israel right now. Everybody knows that Netanyahu and Trump are incredibly close. I would argue that they share a broader tendencies of the global far right. But there's also all sorts of specific synergies between people like Adelson, the Christian Zionist community, and Trump gave Bibi the Golan over a tweet, formalized an occupation, has supported every step of the way, killing civilians protesting in Gaza, Jerusalem's the capital, all the other things that we know, and also torturing, just generally pulling even basic funding from Palestinian institutions. Bibi is running on the race card again, just as he did in the last election when he did an emergency video warning people that Arabs were coming out to vote. Here is an ad. This is basically an excerpt from a Frontline documentary which shows Bibi just disrespecting President Obama to his face in the White House. And then there's reactions. It's clearly a Frontline documentary. So you have the clip, and then it's interspersed with journalists. And I think Ben Rhodes, who was obviously Obama's foreign policy, one of his foreign policy guys, basically just talking about how angry everybody in the White House was and how just sort of shockingly disrespectful this display was on a protocol level. And the spin here, the twist, I should say, this is a campaign ad that Benjamin Netanyahu is running in Israel. So as he hugs Trump, the white supremacy president, he's literally running an ad which is just designed purely to showcase that I personally and directly disrespected America's first African-American president. And this is, by the way, Bibi's also was a prime minister during Clinton's presidency. So and there were conflicts with Clinton. In fact, Clinton sent his campaign strategist to advise Ehud Barak, or maybe not personally, but clearly Clinton wanted Netanyahu out. There is no equivalent of this kind of disrespect towards Bill Clinton, let alone, of course, the relationship he has with Netanyahu. Watch this. There's an ad running right now in Israel.
But this time, Bibi Netanyahu would lecture Barack Obama, taking a hard line on the peace process.
It's not going to happen. Everybody knows it's not going to happen. And I think it's time to tell the Palestinians forthrightly, it's not going to happen.
I've never seen a foreign leader speak to the president like that, and certainly not in public. And I've certainly never seen it happen in the Oval Office.
Israel obviously cannot be asked to negotiate with a government that is backed by the Palestinian version of Al-Qaeda.
You're watching President Obama there with his face in his hand, and you can tell it's not going over well. This is his house, and to be lectured in his office rankles.
It cannot go back to the 1967 lines, because these lines are indefensible.
Bill Daley's standing next to me, and he's going, outrageous, outrageous.
Netanyahu, Yamin.
And that is Netanyahu telling Barack Obama that even this process of a 2 states and 67 borders, which is already stunning, like for the Palestinians to accept that, they would have to accept, it's a given that hundreds of thousands of us were displaced. It's a given that we're not necessarily going to get financial restitution. And all of the 2-state solutions that were put on the table still were not sort of fully autonomous for the Palestinians. All sorts of questions about waterways and air travel and airspace. So that was Netanyahu just basically saying to Obama, like, hey, listen, get it. We're going to be an apartheid state. And even if I have to fake with you some type of pseudo 2-state solution, which he still mouthed, it won't be a real one. This happened, and I look, you can see Obama's rage, and by 2017, the Obama administration was at least ready to abstain on a resolution condemning settlement expansion, and that actually, of course, leads to the story of real and look, I don't want to say real because I don't want to get into this argument, but an actual case of collusion that we do know about and has been on the public record from 2017, which is Michael Flynn during the transition connecting to Russia, presumably others, at the behest of the Israelis to try to undermine Obama's policy of simply abstaining, not even voting for the resolution, but abstaining, which was significant. But now we have a whole other level of courage about this thugocracy with Ilhan Omar. And Netanyahu at AIPAC personally addressed her. And, again, this is in a context, obviously, with just a massive amount of racism and sexism and paranoia and bigotry and fear about Muslims, which is the meeting ground of Netanyahu and AIPAC and Trump and all of that. That's the nexus. It's certainly, if you think it's concerned about anti-Semitism, then I would like to take some time to figure out an internet scam I can list you in if I ever get time. This is what Netanyahu said to Ilhan Omar. And of course, he's referencing her "It's all about the Benjamins, baby" tweet of a couple weeks ago that people made a whole ridiculous melodrama about. From this Benjamin, it's not about the Benjamins. Undoubtedly, maybe a line written by his stupid son. And this led to Ilhan Omar, Yaz Queen. Dude, I am legitimately aggrieved that I will not be able to vote for this woman for president one day. She continues to impress and impress and impress. The sort of what would you call this emoji? This is like the kind of thinking face, sarcastic thinking face
scratching
emoji. Scratching chin emoji, which I actually have used to some decent effect myself. Not a big emoji guy, but I like this one. This one does a lot of work. She writes, this from a man facing indictment. Well, let me read it straight. This from a man facing indictments for bribery and other crimes in 3 separate public corruption affairs. Next. I don't have anything to add to that.